Bantamweight division is about as hot as it's ever been right now. It's stacked. It's very entertaining. So many very quality fighters in the short list of contenders. But to me, one contender specifically stands out, and I gotta pose the question, why is Aljamain Sterling not getting any love? I've been watching this guy for 6.5 years in the UFC, and as soon as I saw him, I thought, this is one of these guys who very well may be a champion one day. But in 6.5 years, he's yet to get that shot. Aljamain is 19-3 across his whole career. He's 11-3 in the UFC, and he's currently on a 5-fight win streak. And these were not easy fights. In fact, 4 of them were top 10 contenders. His last fight, of course, was against Corey Sandhagen, where he beat him in a very impressive and pretty quick way. He broke Sandhagen's 7-fight win streak and delivered his only loss in the UFC. Prior to that, he took on Pedro Munoz, broke his 3-fight win streak and dehorsed him from that big KO win over Cody Garbrandt. Prior to that, Jimmy Rivera, who was on a 20-fight win streak before he got beat by Marlon Moraes. Then he came back and beat John Dodson and got a little bit more steam behind him again, only to have Aljo squash it. The fight before that was Cody Stamann, who was on a 10-fight win streak before Aljamain broke that and delivered Cody's first loss in the UFC. And the fight prior to that was against Brett Johns, who was riding a 15-fight win streak and had never lost until Aljo dismantled him as well. As you can see, these are 5 fights where Aljo was taking on dudes who had a lot of momentum. It's not like these guys had peaked and were coming down the hill. These were dudes who were looking up and thought they were making a real run. Aljo's last loss was about 3 years ago, and it was pretty vicious, if you remember. You probably do. It was that knee to the dome from Marlon Moraes. Now, of course, Marlon is one of these contenders in the mix, in the conversation, but that was 3 years ago. And in MMA, we gotta have short memories. When the bantamweight belt was vacant and up for grabs, I really thought Sterling was going to get that shot. Now I have no problem with Petr Yan being one half of that fight, but why was Jose Aldo the other one? I mean, Jose, of course, is a living legend, and I love the guy, but why was he the other part in that fight? He lost his last fight to Marlon Moraes. Now, even if you don't agree with that, the judges said he lost his last fight, and that's a pretty slippery slope to start saying, well, I don't think he lost, so let's just treat it as a win. I mean, how many fights can we go through retrospectively and say, I disagreed with that decision? To me, the other contenders were Marlon Moraes, Aljo, of course, and Corey Sandhagen. Now, you got to say that if Jose won that fight, then Marlon must have lost it, and I guess that takes him out of the contender argument. So we put together Sterling and Corey Sandhagen, and as we know, Aljo dismantled him. He was very impressive in his victory, and to me, really solidified that claim of, I am next. Now, I love Cody Garbrandt as much as the next guy, and he has reemerged and put himself back into that short list of contenders. With that vicious KO of Rafael Assunção. But as we know, he's shown a lot more interest in the flyweight title and has even gotten that fight scheduled. So to me, he kind of takes himself out of the running currently as a bantamweight contender. So as mentioned, Aljamain has 5 wins in a row. Now, that's more than any other bantamweight fighter, at least at the top of the list, other than Petr Yan. To me, it feels so easy. It feels a no-brainer. But still, how many videos have we seen of Dana being asked the question, when does Aljamain Sterling get the next fight? And Dana acts like he's never heard of the kid. I'm not sure why this disrespect is being thrown Aljo's way. We know that he comes from a great camp up there with Matt Serra. We see him all the time cornering people, just being a real advocate for this sport. We see him on the Joe Rogan podcast. He's a cool dude. He's very respectable. He loves this game. To me, he's exactly what a champion needs to be, and I really want to see him get that shot. Considering that Marlon Moraes and Corey Sandhagen have a fight scheduled later this year in October, that Pedro Munoz and Frankie Edgar are fighting this weekend, It seems like there's only one contender with an unscheduled fight. Come on, UFC. Come on, Dana. Give Aljamain his shot. Let's make it happen.